everyone, welcome back to my channel. For today's video I wanted to do the kind of tag that has been going around recently, which is picking your favourite item from 10 brands. Editing me here, turns out I can't count and I actually only have 9 brands to go through. I'm going to be doing a drugstore version, which is today's video, and then straight after this I'm also going to film a high-end version as well. I'm not too sure when these are going to be uploaded just yet and whether I'm going to upload them back to back or spread them out slightly, but once you've seen this drugstore one, definitely stay tuned for the high-end one, which will follow shortly. So you probably will have seen from the thumbnail a few of the brands that I'm going to be talking about today. With a lot of these brands it was really easy to think of my favourite product. From a couple of them it was a little bit harder. I will start first of all with the brand Essence. This is one where the product was definitely going to be a mascara. The only problem was deciding which one. The one I ended up going with is the Essence Lashes of the Day mascara. It was very close between this and the Green Lash Princess one, but for me I think this one is a bit more of an all-rounder. The Lash Princess one is one that's a bit more of a dramatic mascara, whereas this I can easily wear it every day, but then I can also build it up to be a little bit more dramatic. It's definitely a mascara that has become a staple in my collection and one I will continue to repurchase. Speaking of which, this one is on its last legs and I do need to check if I have a backup, if not order one, because it is such a great mascara. It does say that it's a super volume mascara, but for me I don't think that's quite the case. It does give me a decent amount of length and curl and it does give me a bit of volume. I don't tend to be a person that does like to build my mascara up, so no doubt if it did sort of go with 2 to 3 coats the volume would be there, but for me I tend to just be sort of 1 coat and I'm done, and this is great for that. So this is a product I highly recommend. I think I need to repurchase sometime soon. I then wanted to pick a product from Primark Beauty. I know it's not technically a brand that you can get in the drugstore, but their prices are definitely drugstore type prices. They do have so many great products. A lot of them are kind of dupes for higher end products, and in the few that I've tried they've actually been better. The product that immediately sprung to mind when I wanted to include Primark Beauty was their foundation. This is the Double Coverage Matte Foundation, and I definitely liken this to the Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation, and as you can see this one is £5, so a fraction of the price. This is the foundation that I am wearing now and I absolutely love it. It does sink into the lines in my forehead, but I'm now struggling to find a foundation that doesn't, so I'm starting to get over it. But elsewhere I feel like it does just look great on my skin. It is matte but not too matte, because I do suffer from some dry patches and I never have problems with this clinging to them. It is really quick to apply and I feel like one layer of this is just the right amount of coverage. It is buildable and you can go more fuller coverage. For me I do prefer medium coverage and this is definitely it. I would highly recommend this, and definitely once I feel safe to step foot into Primark again I will be buying multiple ones of these. An honourable mention from Primark Beauty is their Wonder Lash Mascara. That is definitely one of my all-time favourite mascaras, but because I just had to pick one I did go with this one and say it is a great foundation, and if you do have access to Primark I would highly recommend it. The next brand is Milani, and this one was a no-brainer. I had to go with the Silky Matte Bronzer. I have this in the shade 1 Sunlight and it is just such a gorgeous bronzer. This is the product that made me get back into bronzers again. I had a period of months where I would just never reach for bronzer and I wasn't overly bothered that I wasn't reaching for it. I just didn't feel like I needed it to complete a look. Once I started using this and realising that it was tying in my looks, I've then gone back into my collection and reached again for bronzers that I'd not reached for in a long time. And this is one that I do find myself constantly wanting to put in my everyday makeup drawer because I do love it. It is a slightly more cool tone bronzer, and I think a lot of the other ones I had were not orange as such but more warm tone, so I found it not as easy to apply, whereas this is just so easy to apply, and I do find it quite hard to kind of go overboard with this one. I would definitely highly recommend it if you haven't tried it yet. Then for the brand Elf, there are quite a lot of products from Elf that I do love. There are a few skincare items, but I wanted to keep this solely makeup. I do love their under eye setting powder, but in the end I had to go for this eyeshadow palette. This is the New Classics palette. I don't think there's a bad shade in this palette. I don't always reach for the kind of darker shades like the matte black or this sort of the shimmery black down here, but in this palette I do. And to say, I don't think there's a shade in here that I don't love reaching for. And I do like that it has a couple of different shades as well, like this Gilded, which is a kind of lime greeny gold shade, and definitely a shade that I think is unique to my collection. So Overall, this is a great palette. I did originally own the Opposite Attract palette, which is from the same line, and I didn't love that one. I feel like the formula of this one is 10 times better than that one was, and this colour story does speak to me more than that one did anyway. But this is such a great neutral palette, and I believe they're only £14. Next we have the brand Wet n Wild, and for this one I went with their Mega Glow highlighters. This one is in the shade Precious Petals. I do also have one in the shade Blossom Glow. I brought this one over because I think I prefer this shade ever so slightly. This is more of a rose gold shade. It's such a gorgeous silky smooth highlighter that does blend into the skin really nicely, that you don't end up with a stripe of highlighter, but it is also blinding and does just look so pretty on the skin. And I don't think these are much more than £5, and I do really love them. Next we have the brand Flower Beauty, and this is one where it was quite a hard decision to make. In the end, I went for one of the Flower Pop blushes. This one is in the shade Sweet Pea, and it's just a gorgeous light sort of mauvey pink tone. The formula of these is great. I don't know how well that swatch will show there, but it is such a gorgeous shade and they do blend into the skin beautifully. I feel like this blush is really buildable. You can just go in with a light hand and it does just give you a nice flush of colour. Obviously go in more heavy handed and you can build it up to be quite a bright pink colour, but this formula on these blushes is great. And I did actually pick this one up when I was in America last year. At that point we didn't have Flower Beauty here at all. We now do stock it in Superdrug, and in the last couple of months we now have, I think, all of the shades of the blushes, and I do want to definitely pick up another shade. I think I need to have a look online at some more swatches because I'm not quite sure which shade. Yeah, just an amazing blush. The other product which I was originally going to pick, which is why I've brought it over, is their highlighter palette. But I have only had this for a couple of months, so I don't feel like it's fair to include this because I haven't used it for that long, but this one is kind of another honorary mention. Then I wanted to include the brand Physicians Formula. I know their prices are slightly up there, but I do believe they are still technically classed as drugstore. So for this one, of course, I had to include the Butter Bronzer. I got this at the same time as I got the Milani bronzer, at which point neither of them were available here in the UK. But again, as with Flower Beauty, we now carry Physicians Formula, and I do just absolutely love this bronzer. There's another one that is more cool toned. It is really easy to work with. Obviously the name Butter Bronzer, it does just melt into the skin really nicely and it does look nice and healthy. It's not orange in any way. With regards to the scent, at this point I think I'm now used to it, but when I first opened it I wasn't a massive fan, and I think again that did kind of push me to using the Milani one more because I wasn't a fan of the scent. It has now faded ever so slightly. It doesn't bother me as much anymore, but this is a great product. My only issue is the packaging is rather bulky, even though it's pretty, and it has the most useless brush ever. I don't think I'm ever going to use that brush. Does anyone seriously use? Must be some reasoning for it. But yeah, this is definitely a great bronzer and I can see why it has all the hype around it. Then I wanted to include the brand Colourpop. I know this technically isn't a drugstore brand because, especially here in the UK, it is only available online, but their price is a drugstore, so I thought it could fall into the category for this video because it definitely doesn't fall into the category for high end. For this one, I did narrow it down to a lip product and I was torn between the Luxe Cream lipsticks and the Luxe Liquid lipsticks. In the end, I went with the liquid lipsticks. The two I have here are from the Disney Designer collection. They are in the shade Flynn and Beast. The shades are very similar to each other. One does have a slightly more pink undertone to it than the other, but they are very similar. And to be honest, I can never tend to tell them apart just by looking at them, but that's fine for me because I do love each shade equally, which is why I've kind of brought both of them over. This is a really nice lightweight formula. It kind of has that pillowy feeling on the lips, and it is a product that you can build up to make it quite opaque, but you can also just go over with one swipe and just have a bit of a flush of colour to your lips with the sort of healthy pillowy look about them. For me, I don't feel like they dry down completely, which is fine because that does make them extremely comfortable. Because of the kind of thinner consistency, they do sort of become one with your lips. And when they do eventually start to fade, they do definitely fade gracefully, and I don't always notice that these have worn off. Even though the shades do look slightly darker, they do just kind of enhance my natural lip colour and they are great. Definitely next time I place an order with Colourpop, I will be picking some up from the normal line because there are quite a few shades I like the look of. These are a product that I just don't seem to hear anything about at all, so maybe I'm the only person that's a fan of them. And then the final brand is Maybelline, which is definitely a drugstore brand. And for this brand, I wanted to pick another lip product. This is the Maybelline Superstay Matte Ink. I have it here in the shade Lover and Seductress, which are my two favourite shades that I have. Probably Seductress slightly more than Lover. It is such a great long-lasting formula. The only problem I have with these is that they are a problem to take off, provided you do use kind of an oil-based makeup remover, and in that respect they're then fine to remove, but generally they are the longest lasting lipsticks I think I've ever tried. I know these lipsticks are kind of Marmite with a few people because they do stay sticky throughout the course of the day and people don't like that. For me personally, I don't mind it, and I think I've just got used to it with these lipsticks. They are really comfortable and I don't find that I notice them even feeling remotely dry until I've probably had them on for about 8 hours, and by that point they still look pretty much intact. The only thing that's ever faded after that amount of time is on the very sort of inner rim of my lip. These are lipsticks that I will always wear for a wedding because I know they will stick around all day. I have had to restrain myself to not buy every shade every time they bring out a new range of them. They have recently brought out, I believe, a pink range with quite a few nice shades in them, but I want to try and finish these up before I purchase any more. But yeah, great formula and highly recommend it. So they are my favourite products from 9 drugstore brands. I say I'm now going to film my high-end version, so that video will be up shortly. But that is it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. Thanks.